Have you been listening to KSL Podcast's newest show, Uinta Triangle? The podcast takes a look at Eric Robinson, an Australian who went missing while hiking in the Uinta Mountains. The newest episode, which dropped today, discusses some of the challenges search and rescue crews face when trying to locate hikers and campers in remote parts of the wilderness.
Art placed his pack in the helicopter, then climbed into the front left seat. Two Duchesne deputies, the chaperones the sheriff had ordered to accompany him, took seats in the rear.
And so I got to fly in this thing, and there's two search and rescue deputies behind me. But at the end of the day, they'd get flown back out that same day, and I'd stay there.
The chopper lifted off from Moon Lake, its rotor wash kicking up a whirlwind of dust. Art watched the landscape below shrink as the chopper climbed, then moved north in the morning light.
Like an elevator going up the Lake Fork drainage.
The helicopter dropped them in an open space near Lambert Meadow.
I got out with my full pack and started setting my tent up. They were quizzing me, well, are you going to stay here by yourself? You know, there's bears and other dangerous animals here. And I said, I'm used to being by myself out here, and frankly, I don't need you here to walk around with me.
Joining me now in studio to talk more about this is Dave Cawley, investigative reporter and producer for KSL Podcasts and the host of the Uinta Triangle. Okay, you've spent a lot of time in the high Uintas even before you started working on this story. So talk about the terrain and the remoteness of this area.
Sure. Before that, let me just say, that show sounds pretty good. I want to listen to that.
Yeah. Intriguing to hear those search and rescue guys.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
That's my story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the high Uintas are my playground. In fact, I just posted a photo on my personal Instagram yesterday looking back. I've been going into the mountains since I was a little kid. And I can't claim to be, the most amazing mountaineer or the best long-distance hiker that ever was. I'm not either of those things. But it's an area that I know very well. And this story, the disappearance of Eric Robinson, takes place across the entire stretch of the Uinta mountain range, from one end to the other. He was doing the Uinta Highline Trail, which is a long-distance hike across the entire Uintas. And part of the concept or idea of this show was, Eric disappeared doing that. What are the risks or challenges on that trail, both that could throw a guy like Eric, who's very experienced, for a loop, and also, what potential challenges does that face for or pose to search and rescue, right? It's a long trail. There's a lot of different areas you could branch off of that. And so in this episode that just dropped today, episode 6, I start talking about, what are some of those real challenges? The aerial perspective, you fly over in a helicopter, you think, I'll be able to look down and I can just see somebody. Why can't they find somebody who's missing up there? It is so much ground. And there are so many obstacles to vision, right? I mean, you've got huge expanses of just shattered rock on the slopes of these mountains. You've got dense forest. You've got all these little lakes, ponds, and it is such a monumental task for search and rescue with this story, but also with other missing people in the Uinta Mountains or, elsewhere in Utah, to manage that job of finding somebody in that landscape.
Okay, I have to ask you, you go off on your own a lot, don't you? I mean, kind of fess up a little bit. Like, you were one of those first people that go off. Did this kind of creep you out, how difficult it is actually to find someone who goes missing?
It, creep out is maybe not the way to say it.
It would creep me out. That's why I say it that way.
I mean, there's a degree of mystery to the story, right? So I'm intrigued by it. But I also want to be careful as a journalist that we're not pumping up drama unnecessarily. So I try to take a very objective view in telling these kinds of stories. Yes, it is big. It is intimidating. It's challenging. And depending on the level of experience that you bring to the mountains, that's going to influence the way you see it. For somebody who's never visited high elevation mountains like the Uinta Mountains, this is going to sound really exotic. For me, it feels like, well, I go out and I walk off trail in the Uintas for fun every summer. You have to take that risk seriously, but it's not going to be as intimidating or spooky to me as it might be to somebody else.
Like me.
Right? Well, sure.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So when you were talking to the search and rescue folks, was there something then that surprised you about how difficult and challenging the area is?
Yeah, I think what really stood out to me, so Art Lang, who you heard in that clip, funny thing, I knew Art personally before I ever realized that he was a part of this story. And the reason being is, there are a community of people who love the mountains, who go and visit these places for fun. And Art just happened to be hiking on the trail at the same time as Eric Robinson disappeared. And so he felt personally invested in getting involved. And we've seen this time after time where volunteers will come pouring in to try to help when somebody goes missing in Utah, various places, but especially in the Uinta Mountains. And Art's a guy who, if you sit down and you have a conversation with him, he can spin off every little, corner of the Uintas. He's probably been there, and he's probably walked off trail to get there. And he'll be the first one to tell you that if you're 10 feet off in the trees, hunkered down under a bush, somebody can walk right by you and not know. And I think that's the thing that really stands out to me from this whole experience is just, if you don't leave a detailed plan of where you're going to be, if you don't take some precaution about, potentially traveling with another person, right? Eric was out solo. It is so easy for somebody to disappear in a way that they cannot be found up there.
Are they usually successful when they go out and do these searches?
Yes. So this is one of the interesting things, too, in reporting about really any event is we tend to be interested in the things that are anomalous, right? If you think about true crime, like covering crimes the way we've done in the Cold podcast, those are really different stories, and that's what kind of rises them to the level of needing this coverage. Most search and rescue missions, we know statistically, end with the safe recovery of the missing person. A person who's reported overdue in the mountains, oftentimes search and rescue spins up, they go find the person, they bring him home. We in the public never hear about it because that's just the day in, day out of search and rescue. It's cases like this then that don't have that quick resolution that, become a little more dramatic, a little more interesting. And I think there is a possibility that it can skew our perspective into thinking, well, every time search and rescue goes out, they fail to find the person, which is not true.
I want to know a little bit more about this community of people and what prompts them to go out and kind of it's risky, right, for these guys too.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. If you get involved in a mountain search, you're facing the exact same risks, hazards that cause the person you're looking for potentially to go missing, right? So that can be everything from weather, that can be what are called objective hazards. So you step on a rock and it rolls and you weren't prepared for it, that's an objective hazard. Doesn't matter how good you are at being outdoors, anybody can get hit by that kind of thing. So but I think there is a sense of community, as you point out, in the idea that, hey, if something were to happen to me, I would want people to come rally to my assistance as well. And so if we find out that something's happened to somebody else, doesn't matter if it's a guy like Eric who's from Australia or somebody who's local, there are always going to be people who put their own safety maybe a little aside so that they can join the search in the hopes of bringing that person home safely.
Okay, tell people how they can find the podcast.
Absolutely. So uintatriangle.com is our website, and if you listen on Apple, Spotify, whatever, just search Uinta, Uinta Triangle, and we'll pop right up.
Thank you, Dave.